This is a video I've been wanting to make for the past few days since I finished Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. Now, FYI, this video is going to contain slight spoilers for the story mode of the new Dragon Ball Xenoverse game, but it's nothing so to say that would destroy the story of the game. For instance, the spoilers I'm going to be talking about has something to retain to something that's very minor to the overall grand scheme of things of the plot, but it's something I want to discuss because it holds a lot of weight in my heart, and also it holds a lot of weight when it comes to my childhood of when I was watching Dragon Ball Z. So, if you don't want to be spoiled on anything of Dragon Ball Xenoverse related, I don't recommend you to continue on this video. But, if you want to hear about one of my favorite characters of all time of Dragon Ball Z, then stick around for this video because there's something I want to discuss when it comes to the game that was released this week. So, do you all remember the history of Trunks? Now, I know you're looking at this right now and you're like, Chibi, is this what I think I'm looking at? Yes, it's a VHS. Yeah, I know that this is like some dinosaur shit right here, but I mean, look, okay, I know, before I go any further, I know many of you are going to be asking, why do I have a fucking VHS tape of Dragon Ball History of Trunks? Well, when I was a kid, you know, when VHSs were still a thing before DVDs and Blu-ray, I was collecting Dragon Ball Z. My entire Dragon Ball Z collection is in VHS. I'm not even joking. I have a big collection of it. And so, yeah, there you go. I answered the question because many of you are going to ask, why the fuck do I have something this prehistoric? But, anyways, you all remember the history of Trunks, okay? You remember this movie. This movie was the game changer of Dragon Ball Z, and personally, in my opinion. It was something that really changed how movies were for Dragon Ball Z, but also, it introduced one of my personal favorite characters of Dragon Ball Z. In general, it just introduced one of my favorites. And that character would be, actually two characters, would be Trunks and Gohan. Future Gohan. Now, Trunks has always been a really good character, but one character that's always stood out to me when it comes to anything in Dragon Ball Z was Future Gohan. And the reason for that was because this movie is a different type of movie. It's completely different from the normal movies you would see from Dragon Ball Z, but also from anything you would see from Dragon Ball in general. It was very dark. It was something that was not the norm. For instance, there was really not much of a big happy ending for this story. I mean, you could argue and say Trunks saved the day, he destroyed the androids, but still, you have to factor in how many people died for Trunks to do that. So there's still a lot of tragedy and a lot of death on that path that Trunks had to go down to get to the point where he's at, in, you know, after the Cell Saga. So when you think about all of this, okay, this was a very sad story, a very sad piece of the time when it comes to Dragon Ball Z. Gohan sacrificed himself in this movie, and it truly was an iconic scene, because we get to see how Trunks became a Super Saiyan, but we also get to see a character lay down his life and die. It's one of those few rare moments where in Dragon Ball in general, to where a character has a permanent death. And that's what really, I think, made this movie so much more special to me, was because the characters that died in this, they didn't have a second chance. There was no Dragon Balls. There was nothing to bring these characters back. They were gone. They were dead. There's no coming back. And so, when you saw a character die in this movie, you knew that was over. That was it. There's just nothing left. And that's what really stood out to me, because some of the sacrifices that were made in this movie really just hit your heart. Now, getting on to the main discussion of, you know, this video, as I said, I finished the game of Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, and FYI, let's just say for some reason you don't know what Xenoverse is, it is a game, okay? It's a game, but it's not what you would normally see from a Dragon Ball game. For instance, it's not just following the timeline of Dragon Ball Z, and then GT or whatever, or even Super. It's not doing that. Dragon Ball Xenoverse is a new story. It is a legit new story. You could say it's filler, yes, but it's a new story. And the main point of the story, or the foundation blocks, is that you're a character that's tasked with being a time patroller that makes sure that time doesn't get altered at all. There's different parts throughout time that's been altered. You have to fix it. And one of the people that are a part of the time patrollers is Trunks. Yes, Trunks is a part of the time patrol. And so, he's tasked with making sure time doesn't get fucked up. Well, throughout the game, like towards in the middle of the game, you come across an arc that focuses on this segment, Future Gohan. Now, the sad thing about this, okay, is that Trunks has to make sure that history isn't altered. So that would mean that he needs to let Gohan die. Gohan needs to die. He cannot survive the fight against Android 17 and 18, because if Gohan lives, it just drastically changes history as we know it. So Gohan needs to stay dead. Now you have to remember how much weight future Gohan has on Trunks' heart. Regardless of this kind of being a different type of Trunks compared to the Trunks we know in this movie, but also the Trunks even in Dragon Ball Super, it's still the Trunks that's went through so much throughout his life, and how much Gohan means to him is still there. And we know Trunks, one of the big things that drove him as a character was Gohan. I mean, Gohan saved his life. And Gohan is one that trained Trunks so hard to be able to transform into a Super Saiyan, and also was the one that was kind of like a father figure to him, or like a brother. And when, Gohan died, Trunks was devastated. He had his Super Saiyan transformation, and he carried this weight with him throughout his entire life now. And he could never bring Gohan back. And he blamed himself because he wasn't strong enough to help Gohan. He would have held Gohan back if he would have went with him against Android 17 and 18. So he kind of blamed himself throughout his life. Well, now that we know this, Trunks carries this weight with him. He has to go to this timeline, and he has to make sure this timeline isn't altered. And you gotta realize how much weight and how much depression this is gonna give you as a person. Going into a timeline to where your very history was changed forever, and also seeing someone that you thought of like a father or brother died, it just completely died, and they're gone. For good. No coming back. No Dragon Balls. So Trunks, he gets this timeline. And he almost completely disregarded his duty as being a time patroller, someone that, tries to make sure time isn't altered. He almost completely threw that off the table and wanted to just completely alter time to save future Gohan, save someone that he really loved. But here's the thing. Soon as he tries to alter time, he tries to save Gohan, Gohan looks at him and is like, Trunks, you look much older. You're not the Trunks from this timeline. I see Bulma completed the time machine. Now, FYI, some of the dialogue I'm saying is kind of adding a few things in, and might even be removing things. I don't remember the exact phrase per phrase, but I'm getting the kind of main point across. But getting back into it, though, Gohan's like, Trunks, I guess Bulma finished the time machine. That's good. That's very good. I'm guessing that means that you saved the future and everything is fine and all that. And so that would mean that everything worked out in the end. And Gohan kind of keys in that what is going on here is that he knows that Trunks can't alter time. Whatever's happening, it can't be changed. And Gohan, as we know, he's not someone that is stupid. He's a very intelligent individual. He's not a dumbass. And he probably keys in on this throughout, that little segment. And he still decides to lay down his own life against Android 17 and 18. And this one is what makes it so much sadder. And also happy at the same time. In the movie, the original movie, Gohan went to fight Android 17 and 18 with one arm, and he fought them. He fought a very hard battle, but eventually he died. And in his death, Gohan didn't know about the light, the hope. He thought everything was probably going to be darkness. He thought maybe one day Trunks might end up dead as well. I mean, that's probably some of the final thoughts he thought before he finally dropped dead. We don't really know, but that's something you can kind of conclude or think about. And when you think about this, Gohan had a very tragic and dark death in the movie. And he didn't really know if anything would work out when he finally laid down his life. Well, with Xenoverse 2, with this alternate timeline, Gohan, he knows now. With Trunks coming in as a time patroller, and he was almost altered history, he kind of still did, but Gohan still decides to sacrifice his life because of how much weight it carries. Gohan needs to die to trigger Trunks' transformation, but also trigger the entire events of the time machine and all of this stuff. So Gohan's death carried a lot of weight, and Gohan realizes this. His death won't be meaningless, so he still goes into the battle against Android 17 and 18 to die. But this time, he knows that his death really means something. He knows when he finally drops dead, history will be saved. Everything will be fine. And that character development and characterization that future Gohan got after so many years, it's been so long since this movie came out. Like, I don't even know what date this came out. Like, I don't know what date it came out in Japan, but It's been so long since this movie came out, and to think right now, like this week, we would get this much development and characterization for a character this old. It blew me away, because Gohan laid down his life and didn't want to change history because he knew everything would be fine. And that is such a sad but happy conclusion to his character. It adds a little bit more to it. I mean, he didn't die so sad. Like, you know, he didn't know about the light. And so that was a good moment of the game. It was definitely one of my personal favorite moments of Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. Now, it's not my overall favorite. There's a lot of good moments throughout the game, but that's definitely one of them because of how much weight that carries. But Future Gohan being a very good character in general, it's something that I wanted to talk about, and that's kind of why. I mean, it was just such a good scene. Now, there's a couple of other scenes that were really good in the game. I mean, like some Bardock scenes and stuff like that, but that's for another video, another time. But the main reason why I made this video is because I just wanted to talk about how touching that scene was, and I really appreciate that. I mean, I know many might write off the games as it's not being canon, and at the end of the day, it's probably not canon, but it adds that, you know, nostalgic feeling to, you know, my past, when I got into Dragon Ball Z, and just seeing that, it really brought the child out. It brought my love for the series I had such a long time ago. So, well done, Xenoverse, well done for delivering such a powerful scene after all these years. It was a powerful scene. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How'd you all feel about that scene in the movie, but also what I just told you about that happened in Xenoverse 2? And overall, I mean, do you think that Gohan's death was probably one of the saddest, like the future Gohan, that was probably one of the saddest deaths of Dragon Ball in general? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.